Hello and welcome to The Real Talk. I'm your host, Sierra, and today we have Okanagan resident Alison. Alison received a late in life diagnosis that changed everything for her. From being a sous chef for 12 years to now having her career be a hazard to her health, we dive into her celiac diagnosis and how she overcame this unexpected shift. Let's get into it. Welcome, Alison.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So let's hop right into our questions here.
Okay.
So you received a late in life diagnosis that changed everything for you. Can you explain what celiac disease is and why it did change your whole life?
For sure, yeah. So celiac disease is an autoimmune disorder, and it affects the small intestines of those diagnosed. And essentially, everybody has villi that fights off gluten or wheat proteins and products, and celiacs don't have enough villi to fight it off, or we have too much. The reaction of the gluten in our body causes everything to inflame and stops us from retaining nutrients because the villi isn't working properly because it's trying to fight off the effect of the gluten. So celiac disease affects your entire body, but it starts with the diet. It starts with your food. And it changed my life drastically because when I was young and I thought of a career, I was a chef. I went to culinary arts school, I graduated, and I worked as a sous chef for 12 years. My diagnosis came halfway through that. And so I was excited to cook pastas, and I was excited to cook gumbos and eat breads and learn all of the stuff. And then the diagnosis hit, and all of a sudden I had to change everything. My journey for my career was different. My journey to actually just survive through the day because of eating was different. Everything changed.
So looking back, what were some early signs or symptoms that you had celiac in childhood or early adulthood?
So that is a bit of a loaded question, but it's easy to simplify. When I was an adult and I got the diagnosis, probably about 6 months prior to getting the diagnosis and going to see doctors about it, everything I ate made me ill. It didn't matter what it was. I could have eaten pasta. I could have eaten vegetables. It didn't matter. Everything made me ill, and that was weird. That was a new thing that was weird. So then I went and I got the tests, and then I got the diagnosis. And then retrospectively, when my parents and I were discussing it, my family and I were discussing it, when I was young, I suffered with anxiety. We all do. My anxiety would get to the point of extreme tantrums or extreme emotional responses because I didn't know how to control them. And we realized after the fact that my body was trying to fight off all of the food that I was eating. However, somehow the gene wasn't activated when I was young.
Okay.
So
what do you mean by the gene?
So there is a celiac gene. Celiac is hereditary.
Okay.
It does come from your family. There's a lot of studies going on about how the gene gets activated. Not a lot of answers yet. The gene basically can be triggered at any point.
Okay.
And they haven't figured out what it's triggered by. It can be triggered by stress. It can be triggered by diet. But there's a chance that if somebody in your family has it, you could have it too, and it can literally be triggered by anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
You always just kind of hear people being like, oh, I was diagnosed with celiac, and it just kind of goes from there, and, you accept it with your friend group, and you respect it, and you try not to poison them. But I didn't know until you told me in our pre-interview that it was a gene, and I went, what do you mean? I had no idea it had anything to do with family. And you said one of your cousins actually was diagnosed recently.
Just recently,
too.
yeah.
That's wild. And do your parents or grandparents have it, or?
So we don't know for sure. Nobody's exhibited any of the reactions or the symptoms yet. My grandmother and in one line of my family have had health issues with their stomachs in the past. And so we kind of deduced from that, like, maybe that has something linked to it.
Yeah.
But from us analyzing it, it seems like it was on both sides of our family.
Oh, wow.
So it's hard to see. It's hard to say where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's no answers in the research, really, no definitive answers at least.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we're going through this life, constantly learning.
You know, I was just thinking when you were speaking there about like the childhood links that you're kind of figuring out with your parents, and how when I look back at my own childhood, I think about the amount of like bread I ate, the amount of crackers I ate, and just like really gluten heavy snacks that we would eat as children because of convenience or ease or picky eating, whatever. And
Totally.
Did that affect you at all? Like, do you think that that was part of your
Absolutely.
issues? Yeah.
Yeah. As kids, I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't have the example, but you want to satisfy their hunger fully so they can go through their day. As a kid, my family and I, we went on a lot of road trips. We lived in Ontario when I was growing up, so a lot of our family was scattered throughout Ontario, huge province. And so we would take road trips for visiting. And what do we eat on road trips when we're young? We eat fast food. We eat McDonald's. We eat Timbits because we're Canadian. And Timbits was like, as soon as we left the house, we would go to Tim Hortons, grab a Timbit.
It's a classic.
100%. It's the best road trip snack.
Yeah.
But I wasn't showing physical symptoms. So there was nothing that really triggered in my parents' brain that I should be going to see a doctor. But I was a miserable child. I was always anxious. I was always causing problems. And I was just always, we didn't think about it until after, but I was just always miserable in my own skin and thinking that no one was listening. Like as a child, you always think no one's listening, right? But it was just, no one would really listen because nobody knew what was going on.
No.
Including me.
Exactly. I'm sure there probably were some slight physical symptoms that you were having.
Yeah.
Like you were probably bloated and didn't even know what bloat was, you know, and bloating can be so painful too.
Yeah.
So yeah, even like the small things like that, like how are you supposed to say to your mom, like, oh, I have a tummy ache, and you have no idea, and your mom's probably just going, yeah, just go lay down for a little bit, you know?
Yeah. So. Or like I would miss school days. Like I would have sick days because I would be sick in the morning, and then like 3 hours later I'm fine and I'm playing around and stuff because I just passed whatever was bothering me. We didn't really think about it.
No.
You just think, well, my kid's sick, I'm going to leave him home.
So you mentioned earlier that you spent 12 years as a sous chef. And what were those years like mentally and physically before your diagnosis?
Before my diagnosis, it was fun. I loved cooking. I loved being in leadership. It was just fun to make people happy with food. That's always been like a general goal of mine, is to make people happy with food. And the industry definitely has a lifestyle that a lot of people know about. It's sort of slimming out in recent years, this lifestyle. But there was a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of stuff like that. And so I was obviously doing that. I didn't really know, like I said, it was probably about 6 months before the diagnosis that any sort of physical symptoms that I noticed were happening. Another thing from my childhood is that I've always struggled with like dermatitis, different forms of dermatitis or psoriasis. And those are linked to celiac as well.
Oh.
They have been linked. Polycystic ovarian syndrome also has a lot of links to celiac. It's all in the same area of the body, so makes sense. So working in kitchens, those were the only two things that I thought I had wrong with me. If I called in sick, it was one of those two, probably.
And it's also crazy that dermatitis could be so bad that you're calling in sick for work.
Yeah.
I've had it like here and there over the years, especially being in the Okanagan where it's so dry and it's like hard to deal with sometimes.
Totally.
Or, I mean, I've had just weird reactions to things over the past few years as well. But to have to call out for it is pretty wild. PCOS, I completely understand.
Yeah.
I have endometriosis, so like I
Totally
completely understand that one. And I feel like most people who deal with even just heavy periods or, you know, miserable cycles or anything along those lines can really understand that. But
absolutely,
skin issues, you wouldn't really think would.
You wouldn't think. And like, I think it was mostly because I was working in the kitchen. So I was like, if any of my skin flakes off or like, you know what it like,
Yeah.
anything like that to happen, I don't want someone eating me.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I don't think I took that much time off for dermatitis, but it was still like, I would go to work and like, it was mostly on my scalp and like people would see it. And then I was self-conscious of it. And there was that added level of everything. And there's also an attitude in the kitchen where, and I'm not proud of it, and nobody should be proud of it, but there's an attitude in the kitchen where allergies sometimes don't get taken seriously. And I remember back in the day being that person who said, celiac doesn't exist. You've made that up. Everybody eats bread. It's fine. It's like the oldest food we've all eaten. And I think karma got back to me and said, okay, so by the way, and it was like a night and day once, like the day I got the diagnosis. Not in the way, like after the diagnosis, I definitely was like going through the motions and still doing the job because I did it.
That's all you knew.
That's all I knew. But then it got to the point where like I couldn't get convenience food for dinner at night when I came home. So I had to make my own food, or I just went without eating. Because when you're working in the industry, it's very physical and you're working night shifts or whatever, your schedule isn't consistent. And so your quality of life and your quality of sleep isn't the best.
No.
And I fell into the bad quality of it. I would just give in to the bad sleep. I would give in to the no rest and go in and be miserable at my job. And then I started realizing there's so much more to life than just doing a job and being miserable at it. And also food for me was different. Food in my life was different. All of a sudden, every single day I was thinking, where's my next meal coming from? What am I having? And will it make me sick? Because like I had said earlier, everything I ate at that point was making me sick, so I didn't know what to do. Luckily, I was able to get to a gluten-free diet, and now I've healed any damage that is on my intestine, which is really nice. But it's definitely 10 years since the diagnosis, I definitely still struggle. Whether it's a regular meals or eating the proper nutrients that my body seems to not be absorbing otherwise.
So you mentioned there was about 6 months before your diagnosis that everything really started to change for you. Can you explain what happened in that time frame and what made you seek a diagnosis or get help for what was going on?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, because I wasn't digesting anything properly, bowel movements were totally different. They used to be kind of regular, and then they were not so regular. I think that was the biggest flag for me to check something out, because when you go from something being so regular to being irregular, you're like, no.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the food that I was normally eating totally fine. So like we had a staff menu where I worked, and there was one pasta on the staff menu, and I would get it every single day. Well, maybe not every single day, but you know what I mean? Like it was my regular staff meal. And for a while I was like, oh, it must be the garlic in it that's bothering me, which would suck as a chef to not be able to eat garlic.
Yep.
And then it was something about turkey. I thought I had eaten a turkey dinner or something, and I thought, oh, well, I can't eat turkey. It makes me sick. Well, no, it was all the accoutrements. It was the stuffing. It was the gravy. It was everything else. But my brain was not convincing myself at all about gluten. So I went to the doctor after just like all these symptoms were happening. And a couple of times I met a couple of doctors that said, oh, you're just constipated. Go take a stool softener and get over it. They didn't say get over it, but that's kind of the mood I got.
Yeah.
And then, or they would say, just go drink a lot of water. Like it might just be your period.
Yeah.
Of stuff like that. And I went, okay, cool. Awesome. And then it just kept happening. Like it kept showing these symptoms of not digesting, whatever the case was. And I would go through hot sweats too, which was a new thing. So I was like 26, like, am I menopausal? That's not right.
Not completely unheard of.
Not completely unheard of, but that's a trigger in your brain that something ain't right.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, finally found a doctor who cared. And she sent me for testing because she was worried that it would either be celiac or diabetes. Those two aren't they're not good news to get.
No, and I feel like now in like this day and age, because this was 10 years ago, I feel like now it would be like, oh, colon cancer. Like,
yeah,
there's such an uptick in colon cancer in young people. But still, I mean, celiac or diabetes, like, which one is worse?
Yeah,
at this point?
Which evil is the lesser, right?
Yes.
So there are two ways to get diagnosed as a celiac. The first way is the initial screening, which is a blood test. And if they can find the antibodies in your blood that signify that your villi is weak, then that's a good indicator. Sometimes the blood test isn't 100% accurate, or they don't show enough of the antibodies for it to be conclusive. So that's when they would send you for a biopsy. And then you would get a biopsy of your small intestine. And then that's more definitive. I, either luckily or unluckily, was off the charts from the blood test. So she said, wow, the fact that it only started showing you symptoms now is crazy because of how severe it was. But I think, and this is just my thought, this is based on no science, I think the longer you let it go, the more intense your results are.
That makes sense to me too. And I think as well, you did have symptoms, but you had been living with them for so long that they were your normal.
That's right, yeah.
And so how would you know any differently?
Totally.
Right? So it's amazing that you finally found someone that took you seriously, because I feel like so many women, especially in young people,
absolutely,
we go through this, phase of, trying to get a diagnosis, and so many doctors will look at us and say, but you're young, you're healthy, your blood tests come back normal,
so you should be fine.
You should be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, your blood test did not come back normal, but
yeah,
that's for the better, because
then we got the answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
What was the experience like at work day to day before and after diagnosis as a chef?
That's a good question. It was, you don't think that it's going to be big changes, but it really was. It made big changes. Physically, I was doing it all. I was cooking the pastas. I was cooking the rices. I was, washing my hands all the time, as you do in the kitchen, but not wearing gloves because you don't need them all the time as long as you're washing your hands. And that's something as small as being able to use your hands on everything was something that changed drastically, because I could no longer do any baking because anytime that my hand touched flour, it would rash. And that one's not always common because it has to go through the digestive system. But if you are slowly introducing yourself to a gluten-free lifestyle, your body's going to react when you're bringing stuff back into it that it just realized it's allergic to or can't digest or whatever the case is. So I couldn't bake bread. I had a job where there was a pizza station, couldn't do it. I started wearing gloves every so often if I started seeing my skin reacting when I was touching a food product. There were days where I would have to wear a mask in the kitchen if I knew that people were baking around, because if any of that touches me, bad news bears. And finding time for a meal was always hard because breaks in the kitchen almost non-existent, unless you're a smoker.
Yes.
And so trying to find time to sit down and eat was hard because I needed to keep refilling my nutrients. However, there was nothing I could eat in our kitchen for a while. So the transition period after the diagnosis was really hard because of all the little tiny things that you don't think about. Whether it's wearing a mask while you're working with flour or gloves or whatever the case was. There's always something so small that whatever day it happened, I'd be like, really? I can't even put my hand on a piece of bread that I'm baking? Like, it was difficult. It was really difficult, but having the knowledge of food safe, like having my food safe, having all of that information, and now learning about cross-contamination, I started noticing there were ways to mitigate that. There were ways that we could make it safe for someone like me. Mm-hmm. And the issue I ever ran into was that we don't have time for that. In a rush when an allergy comes in and you need to make a huge new station, clean it, and get fresh product or whatever. Yeah. It was always met with, we don't have time for that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, I don't have time to frequent any of these establishments if you won't make time for me.
Yeah.
So being in the kitchen, working, started making me realize that front and back needs education. Mm-hmm. And needs to care about the general public. And that's a whole other conversation for another day, but that was generally what I got in the transition period specifically.
Yeah, and I don't think that many people would really even think about celiac going into like, oh, breathing in flour dust, or I mean, you should have been in a hazmat suit. Let's face it, probably would have been easier than than having a little mask on and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I don't think the general public or people who have never, been around anyone with celiac to your degree, or even a friend that's just been diagnosed who can still touch a piece of bread. It's so much more serious than most people think that it is. I was severely lactose intolerant for a number of years.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow it just went away. Who knows how? I just decided to eat some cheese one day and I was fine. And I was like, well,
and you were like, yes,
yeah, let's continue trying this. But there were so many times where I would reiterate to the waitress and say, hey, I cannot have any dairy. Like, I know this is supposed to come with cheese. Is it fried with butter? Like what is going on? Is there butter on the bun? All of these different things. And sometimes my food would come out and I'd be like, there's garlic butter on this. Like, I can't eat this. And a lot of the time, a lot of kitchens will just take, let's say, like what was in the bun and put it onto another bun, even though it's touched like other, it's touched dairy or it's touched gluten. And that is not great.
Not at all.
And it can still make someone very, very, very sick. So yeah, the education around it. And I would almost say on the back end of things, it's a resistance to change.
Totally.
And it doesn't have to be like that, even though they're saying like, well, we don't have time for that. There should be time for that.
Yeah.
Because do you want to be known as someone or a restaurant or establishment that frequently glutens people and they end up in the hospital because they're so sick?
And that person could sue you.
Yes, exactly. Or would you rather be a safe establishment and
that people rave about all around town?
Yeah. There's so many ways you can go about it, and it does not have to be met with the resistance that it is. And I completely understand that it can be a complete pain to do that. But again, safety over poisoning someone or making someone really sick. Yeah.
And another thing that I have problems with is food. The culinary world is very trendy, which is awesome. We love food trends.
Yes.
But when the trends start to go from stuff that is safe for me to eat to all bread or all soy products, which has gluten in it, never would have guessed. Soy products have gluten in it. Just anytime that a menu is changed at a chain restaurant, I always dig into what every single ingredient is, whether I can find it on the menu or someone that works there tells me. And then I'm like, hey, I used to be able to have that, and now you have a product in it I can't have. Do you know what the decision behind that was? Because now you're eliminating half of your customers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so trends kind of stress me out a little bit. And lately I've noticed a lot of restaurants have fewer gluten-free options than they used to. So kind of a PSA, I guess, is when you're following food trends, like, think of everybody.
Yeah. It doesn't have to just be for the general public that doesn't have any food sensitivities or allergies or...
General public can go anywhere and not have to think about it. We have to think about it everywhere we go.
What did the early stages of transitioning to gluten-free look like for you?
There was a lot more that I had to do when it came to grocery shopping or even just shopping for care products. I started to have to read every single ingredient label. So you can imagine if you're going for a big grocery shop and you have to spend a few $100s on your staples or whatever, you have to read every single box. And in the transition period, I didn't know any of the new products. So obviously I still read all of the products that claimed they were gluten-free.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between gluten-free and celiac, and some people who have only just a gluten intolerance can have things that may have come into contact. Celiacs cannot. So differentiating between products that may contain or does contain has been a struggle, and that's probably the biggest hurdle that has continued from today, or from then to today.
What's the difference for those who don't know of like may contain to does contain?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it does contain, that means that the recipe for this product clearly has it as an ingredient list. If it's may contain, that means that it was made in a facility where, like I said about restaurants, there's flour in the air and they can't control the contamination of it. So they have to say may contain. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's wheat in the product, but that as someone who cannot digest even a small, tiny amount, we should stay away.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy. And sometimes they'll hide it as one of the last ingredients, right? Wheat. They'll just like put it as a last ingredient, and you'll scan it really fast and you'll go, oh, totally fine. And then you go home and you read it again, because you don't just read it at the store, you read it at home to confirm that you were right.
Yeah.
You'll see the wheat and you'll go, crap.
Yeah. Gotta return this now.
Yeah, 100%. And so reading labels is huge. And that was the biggest learning curve. And not only on food, but on hair products, on skin products. Like I struggled with dermatitis. So any skin product I used that might have had any wheat or soy component to it probably gave me that skin reaction. And a lot of skincare products use soybean oil.
Right.
Or there are a couple of hair, just even shampoo brands that use wheat protein because it's so good for your hair. Well, not very good for my hair. So learning about different products has been a huge journey as well. I could use branded products from the grocery store and my scalp would start reacting, and I would think, well, whatever, it's just a cheap product or whatever it was. But then when I got the diagnosis, I was like, oh, okay, so I have to change and things, and grocery store shampoo is no longer good for me. And so I have to splurge. I have to spend that extra money on the good quality product because it has the ingredients that won't bother me.
Right.
And that includes skin, like lotions, makeup even, like anything that you put on your body, you have to check the ingredients because you don't know.
That is so frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
And again, most people wouldn't think that far into it. And I was just thinking too, like, I'm sure when you're reading a label for something, even if it says wheat, but like you mentioned soy before. And so there's all of these other like ingredients that could contain wheat, but of course it's not going to say wheat right there.
Totally.
Right? So I'm sure that's another thing to educate yourself on. Okay, what are ingredients that come in contact with gluten or made with gluten that wouldn't be labeled on here?
Right.
That is a whole other, I mean, thing that you have to look out for at this point.
Yeah. And just a specific too with dermatitis or with any skin, like psoriasis, any skin condition like that, a lot of the remedies include oats, and oats can come into cross-contamination if they're not certified gluten-free.
Yeah.
So if you're using an oat milk or an oat milk product or oat and honey product, there's a chance that you're probably introducing it back into your body. And that's really frustrating because 90% of lotions right now are made with oats.
It's so popular
or soy.
right now.
Like it's so, but there are products out there you just have to learn to read and you just have to spend that extra money for survival. That's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one more thing to mention is that it is very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
To be gluten-free. And
hugely expensive.
I don't know if, any viewers will understand this, but if you look at, let's just say you're at the pasta section of the grocery store and you see the regular pasta for $2 and next to it is the gluten-free pasta for $8.99 for a box half the size. Yeah. And I hate to say it, it does not taste the same either.
No.
So totally adjusting your diet and getting used to things that, especially as a chef, are not as delicious as you're used to.
Yeah.
And adjusting your whole diet and budget too to this whole lifestyle is probably extremely frustrating. Hey.
Totally. Yeah. And it's constantly a struggle because even when new product comes out, you get really excited, but it's like the new product is like $2 more than the old product that you're used to. But I think there doesn't seem to be any sort of like appetite to make gluten-free stuff cheaper, which I think is really sad. Because I mean, I need it to live, but other people like a gluten-free diet. So there's that. I think the financials have been crazy. Like what I used to spend on a week's worth of groceries, I now spend double just on groceries.
Easy double, if not more, I'm sure.
Yeah. And there are some convenience products that are like, brands that are making convenience products are getting so much better at it. They're just like really nailing it. Again, they're double the price of the regular, like a frozen pizza that's regular is $3.99. We have to spend almost $20 for one that's smaller with less cool ingredients, half the time lactose free too. And I love my cheese. So I think that there's no adjustment period for the price either. Like for the price change of your lifestyle, I'm still adjusting to it. Like I'm still going to the grocery store being like, really? It's all the same ingredients. You're just swapping one thing and you're making it that price. Like, so with the price of groceries, it's made me really hone in on cooking whole foods, making things from scratch, making a lot of things homemade. And coming from a culinary background, I have that already checked off. I already know the ins and outs, the behinds of all the food. It would really, really not be great if I didn't. So
no, I know a lot of people struggle with that side of things. Yeah,
I know a lot. I have met a few celiacs or gluten intolerant people who they see some of the things I cook and they go, how did you do that? And I'm like, I just made tomato sauce and put it on pasta. Like it's not that hard, but not everybody knows how to cook. And if you get diagnosed late in life and you don't know how to cook, like that's another extra level of struggle that you have. So I was really lucky that I got that background.
How did your diagnosis impact the life you were building at the time?
That's also a very good question. I think at the time I wasn't really building a life. I think I was working and I was living and that was all that mattered to me at the time. There was no real future plans. I'm not a 5-year down the road kind of person. I do like to live in the moment, sometimes as a hindrance. But like I said, I didn't really have a plan back then. And I think the diagnosis kind of halted me and made me go, well, you need to start making one. And I think a lot of what my thought process was I'm making food for people that don't matter to me. And I'm making food that I don't care about. And that really bummed me out. Yeah. And so I was miserable. I was changing jobs more frequently. I was trying to find somewhere where I thought I fit. And I would always fit for like a week and then go, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And then try and find something else. And then one of my last jobs that I worked with someone who I had worked with before, and we got along really, really well. And they were a really good leader. And I thought, maybe I can do this again. But then it just kept being like, you're working in a hot kitchen in the summer. You don't get to go to the beach the way you want to. You don't get to, go out on the weekends the way that you like to with your friends. Like something happened and I turned miserable and I lost all passion. I lost the desire to cook for other people. Everybody felt really ungrateful for the work that I was putting into it. I constantly had to close kitchens as a sous chef or like an assistant to the chef. You're usually in that secondary role. So it was just like the quality of life that my brain wanted, or that my heart wanted even, just didn't exist anymore. It was gone. I romanticized Italy. I romanticized Paris and all of the baked goods and stuff like that. And all of a sudden I couldn't romanticize them anymore.
Right.
New Orleans was like a bucket list item. I wanted to go tour the culinary world of New Orleans, have a beignet, have gumbo, and couldn't do it anymore. So everything that childhood Alison dreamed about couldn't happen the way that she dreamed about. So everything changed. I had to change everything. I had to change the way that I viewed myself, had to change the way that I viewed the world. I also had a severe injury and I sliced off my finger. Anyway, it has grown back. Everything's healed. Everything's fine. But that injury was like the cherry on top of the cake, where I was like, I'm done. I am done hurting myself, breaking my back, being tired all the time, not being able to eat for ungrateful people. And I thought, what else do I want to do? I had a good opportunity to go back to school. I grasped that opportunity. I moved back in with my parents to save money while I was doing it. I went back for administrative assistant certificate. I have chosen the career that I feel like I fit in finally. I have never been happier at a job. I've never had this amount of time to actually focus on what I want in my life. I always was focusing on, well, tomorrow we have a big 20 top and we got to do this and I got to cover this shift. I didn't have to worry about that anymore. I didn't have to worry about anything anymore except for getting up and going to work. Like, I went from like a Tuesday to Sunday or Tuesday to Saturday or whatever my shifts were, 2 to 10s, and then started Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And as much as like you want to rag on a 9 to 5, you can get stuff done. Like, you can actually, and your sleep is better. And like, there's just less anxiety and less stress. And it was like the best decision of my life. And because I have all this time now, I can actually cook food that I love. And I live with roommates right now. And when I cook for them, it's like it's the best feeling, because they're always like, oh my gosh, I live with a chef, it's great. And I'm like, this is just butter and toast. Like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, but yeah, it's like diagnosis happened and I like teetered, and then I bottomed, and then I like plateaued while I was schooling, and now I'm just like in a high, and I'm able to experience things like a podcast or like anything that's actually fun and making me excited to look forward to. I can actually do. And that's huge for me.
Yeah. I think maybe just going back to the cooking for a second.
Yeah, for sure.
My dad is actually a Red Seal chef. So
I
completely understand where you're coming from with like losing the passion for it, because I did watch him lose his passion for it before he left that career. And now him and I talk, because I love cooking too. Him and I talk about making food with love a lot. And I think that a lot of people don't quite understand that what you put into food, you get out of it.
Absolutely.
So if you're rushing through dinner and, you know, just making it so you're putting food on the table, that's fine. We all have those days.
Yeah.
But it's like when you put something down that you just can't do anymore, and then you come back to it later in life or whenever, it's like you can find the passion for it again. And it sounds like that's what you found when you have started cooking again, and your roommates are so happy with you, of course, and everything. But that must feel really gratifying in a lot of ways too.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's huge. It's like, I have a lot of hobbies too, so I that analogy is pretty good. You put something down and you walk away from it and you think about it every so often. And then once you get back to it, you're like, oh my gosh, I have clarity now. And I actually know how to put it into, like, I actually know how to action this thing. Like, there's something so poetic and beautiful about taking a break from something you love. Not a person necessarily. We're not talking about people. We're talking about things.
Yes.
But taking a break from something you love to really understand what your life is like without it can reignite that passion. And I think that that's what happened with me, and what it sounds like what happened with your dad. When you said that you guys talk about making food with love, my whole body shivered. Like, that's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. No, you have to, you can tell when something is not made with love.
Absolutely.
In general.
Yeah. Yeah, go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Or are you kidding? But yeah, you can tell when something is just thrown together as opposed to like you took the time to make something, whether it's a gift for someone, something for yourself for your home, painting your walls. You know, you can tell when something has been thought about and the passion has put in behind it to make it something that you like and you love and that you'll enjoy, whether it's for 5 minutes or for 50 years.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
How did having answers change the way you looked at your overall health?
It definitely made me listen to my body a lot more. I think that was the biggest thing that I took away from this is I listened to my body. So now if I get something like the common cold, or I got COVID a couple of times, I knew right away something was wrong because I listened to every part of my body. It was like now knowing how my body reacted to something that I absolutely knew could bother me or make me very, very sick. It was like every time something was wrong, I went, oh, is that a celiac attack? No. Okay, wait, take a second. Like my initial response was like, oh my God, what did I eat yesterday? No, wait, take a second. And then I would think about what the actual symptoms were. And then I would go, oh, it's just a common cold. Yeah. Or, oh, this is just a period cramp, or like whatever it was. I was so much more attuned with the internals of my body and the way that it worked and the way that my body talks to my brain.
Right.
That was a big thing. And so I knew I would recognize that like sometimes I didn't need to go to the doctor because it was just like I did eat something funny. And the only cure for celiac is there is no cure. And the only thing you can do is rest. And the only thing you can do is rest and have a gluten-free diet. Like there's literally no other. If you've been glutened, depending on how severe it is, you might have to go to the hospital and get fluids, or you just stay at home and you rest for days. And it could last 1 day or 7 days. And that's a whole other story. But knowing how my body works, then I absolutely now know how long it takes to heal from certain things. Colds take about 7 days to fully get through. Haven't had a flu in a really long time, so I'm very lucky about that. But like just the way that I'm able to figure out my health without outside intervention or medical intervention has really made it easier to get through life, which is kind of a general statement, but it's just like, I don't know, if I don't have to worry about going to the doctor or don't have to worry about them giving me a response I don't really like or I don't think is right.
I was just thinking that like, you know, you're going to the doctor and they're going, you are fine. You know, like technically you are fine. You will get over this.
Yes.
And the stress of medical anxiety and going to the doctor and you're expecting to be told that, you know, something is severely wrong.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it's really amazing that you're able to recognize that with yourself and to know when something is actually really wrong and you do need that help and that intervention rather than, oh, it is a cold. I can stay home and rest.
I just need some soup and crackers and I'm fine. Like,
gluten-free crackers.
Well, obviously, rice crackers. Yeah.
So you talked about before being glutened. Can you explain what happens if you accidentally ingest gluten?
For sure, yeah. And I will preface with that everybody has a different reaction. There are any kind of physical symptom, celiac can exhibit them, but not everybody exhibits all those symptoms. So my personal journey, people think that you get diarrhea every time. That's not everybody's case. I get the opposite. And it can, like I said, it can last from like a 24-hour period to like a week. Sometimes some people have had a full month reaction. Wow. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much you have taken in. One molecule of gluten can have you react. And so I get that bowel movement or none. And then I get hot sweats. Hot sweats is actually the biggest trigger to know that it is gluten because a fever is a way to fight off an infection. And so that's the way that my body is reacting. It's telling me, hey, by the way, something's in here we don't like.
Yeah.
We're trying to fight that off. And then I get bloated. I used to take like comparison pictures before and after a reaction. I would look 8 months pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. And it was like a hard stomach. Like, I wouldn't really get nausea. Every once in a while I would get nausea, but it wasn't severe. Vomiting didn't really happen much, but I know that can be common as a reaction. But a lot of like, I can't move like I would just move like molasses. It was like somebody was pulling me down to earth. Like a physical weight was pulling me down. Plus I couldn't have a bowel movement, plus hot sweats, plus like, so I didn't exhibit all the symptoms, but the symptoms that I exhibited were like, oh my God. And my friends would see me and they go, you've lost all your color. Well, are you okay? Those are the biggest things that happen. But the symptoms that happen the symptoms that happen post-attack as well are pretty severe, which I don't think anyone talks about.
No.
And it's all mental.
Oh.
I mean, some people probably have physical reactions as well, but like my journey is that once I've gotten the gluten out, I have no idea where that came from. Where did that come from? Was it me in my own kitchen? Was it my mom accidentally? Was it this restaurant? Was it this? Did I accidentally touch this? And you have to go through all of those and you never get an answer because you can't zero in on where it is.
No.
And especially like, I love eating out and I love skip the dishes, but I try not to as much as possible because there's always that risk that I'm taking.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's the biggest thing is you can never zero in on where it came from. So why is it happening? And there is reaction times too vary. So like sometimes you can react within 45 minutes or right away. Sometimes you don't react for 24 hours. It's similar to like how food poisoning can work.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. And sometimes you don't even get a reaction till like a week. How are you going to zero in on where it bothered you? So
when you've eaten, I mean, if you are eating 3 meals a day, 3, 6, 9, 12.
Yeah.
15,
Was it my breakfast? Was it my this?
How
Was it
many
that one
meals?
snack? Was it that coffee I had that someone touched a croissant, dipped it in, and then gave it to, like, that's extreme, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then your mind goes to things like that. Like, well, maybe they read celiac and they didn't take it seriously. And then they rubbed a piece of bread on my face. You know what I mean? Like your brain goes to such extremes that are probably not the thing that happened, but you can't, there's no answer. So there's this constant cloud of what happened. And it goes anytime that you can't find where your glutening came from, that cloud doesn't go away.
No.
It's with you forever.
It's a constant stress, anxiety. Yeah. It's just a constant in your life. And I don't know, how often does this happen? Like, how often has it happened to you? Like a couple times a year kind of thing? Or
I would say on average every other month.
Really?
Which is higher than it should be, I think. But sometimes I'm lazy and I'm like, I know that my friend did something there, but I'm really hungry and I'm just gonna, and then sometimes it's me. And when it's me, I'm like, well, you're an idiot. You did that. Like I go through my own turmoil, but when you know that it's not you, you've taken all your due diligence. What are you going to do? And like you live with it forever. And I just saw a reel of someone who said the reason that celiac struggles so much is because and I'm generalizing it and I'm paraphrasing for sure, that he said, we always wonder where our next meal is coming from and if it will make us sick. Could you imagine? I'm sure you probably have imagined this at some point in your life, but anyone else, could you imagine every single day not knowing if food is going to make you sick? That's so scary. I'm like shaking. I'm like thinking about it right now. I'm like, it's so rough. And we don't like to, I'll speak for myself. I love to talk about my celiac, But I don't like to talk about it too much when I can tell that people are like, we've already heard this. Like and they might not be thinking that, and that might be all in my head. But either way, it's like, I need to tell someone.
Yeah.
No one else is understanding this. Do you guys understand that in my head when you're not around, there's a constant voice asking me questions that I don't have the answer to? Like, I think that's the post-reaction stage, I think, is the worst from a mental health aspect because of exactly what I just explained.
And so many people would never think that a food allergy, intolerance, disease, autoimmune disorder, whatever, would affect you like this. But it does. It does. Yeah. And it's so much more than, oopsie, she ate some, she ate a little bit of flour. It's, you said, it can be a day's reaction, a few hours, up to a month, if not longer, right? So,
and people who aren't affected by it will make jokes and like, I have a huge crude sense of humor. So like any joke does it for me. But like when people start making jokes about, oh, well, this would taste better with gluten in it. I'm like, yeah, I know. But I can't taste that.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is now just hurting me. Is that your goal? It's kind of sucks.
Well, it's good that you stand up for yourself too, though, because a lot of people wouldn't, and they would just
laugh it off
or like cower, just kind of like step back. But I think that sometimes people need that little bit of tough love with this kind of thing, that it is real, it is serious, and I am affected by this, and why are you joking about it when it affects me so severely? And then if you think about whatever makes you sensitive, how about if I joked about that, or something that affects you every single day? Do you want someone to joke about it with you? Not always. Sometimes it's fun, it's lighthearted, but like I know everything tastes better with gluten. I was late diagnosed, I get it. Like I know. You have 26 years of eating it. So.
Like, you're just rubbing it in my face now.
So what advice would you give to someone who's newly diagnosed or struggling with the same issues that you have?
Biggest advice is advocate for yourself and lovingly don't shut up. Literally, do not stop. Even if you're annoying your family, even if you're annoying your friends, you will not get answers for everything, but don't stop trying. Self-advocacy for help is such a big thing nowadays, which with like doctor shortages and everything. And like, if you feel something's wrong, don't let them gaslight you, because that's what they're doing when they're saying, oh, you just have some tummy troubles. I've had a doctor tell me, suck it up, buttercup. Very old-fashioned doctor. So anyway, but yeah, don't be ashamed to go to the doctor as well. I have a lot of friends who are my age, like millennial era of people, just like refuse to go to the doctor for whatever reason. Because they get turned away, or because they're just like, well, you're not showing the symptoms today. Whatever. Do it anyway. Especially if you think that it's a dietary need. That's every day. It's a human necessity is food. You cannot survive without it. If you're not eating properly and you're not retaining nutrients, you need help and you need to go to the doctor. Go to the doctor, advocate for yourself, and don't stop until you get answers. And I think too, if you are scared about going in person, there are telehealth services that are there to help you. And a lot of the times with those, they will send you for the correct referrals and everything. And it is really hard in a lot of communities, including Vernon, where we are. I think we have one walk-in here, and they only take a certain number of patients a day. And no doctors are accepting patients right now. And it's really, really hard. But like you said, if you are having these problems, I mean, with celiac, if you go on so long without help, you will affect other parts of your body. You will literally damage things to the point of no return. And that's really scary. Absolutely. And like you said, it's hard to find a doctor. Telehealth is a thing. I've had doctor's appointments from Tia Health was one that I had, and it was virtual or phone call or video, super low key, got the answers I needed. It was really, really quick, and I didn't take up any time or space at the Emerge. So that, like, there's always a way. In healthcare, there is always a way. If you think that you've tried everything and you're not getting your answers, you haven't tried everything. There is always a way.
So we've reached the end of today's interview, and I have one last question for you.
Okay.
If our audience could take away one thing from today's interview, what should it be?
I think the biggest message I want to send out to people, whether you're diagnosed or know someone that's diagnosed, do the reading. Educate yourself. I didn't know anything until I knew. I didn't know anything until I went to like Celiac Disease Foundation's website, Celiac Canada. There are so many resources on the internet right now. Those two websites specifically have extra resources. They've got clinical studies up to date. They've got any information, any questions, any frequently asked questions that people have. You have all your information. It's all out there at your fingertips. There's no reason anymore for you to not know about cross-contamination with gluten. It's so prevalent in today's society, and so many people are getting diagnosed at a skyrocketing rate that there's no reason that we can't know about it. Do your research, do your reading, learn and care about people. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Alison. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Oh, it's so nice. And I really hope that a lot of people out there are now educated a little bit more in celiac.
I hope so too.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everybody for watching and listening today, and we'll catch you next episode. Bye.